This is the story of the most humble 17-year-old on earth getting his hands on way too much DMT with only one LSA trip under his belt. If you've smoked DMT before, you already know the crazy shit that's about to go down. Now, for some reason, smoking DMT before really even having a proper psychedelic trip sounded like a great idea when I was a teenager. Thanks, government. You did a great job educating me. But that is for another video. Today you're gonna get 4 trip reports because I did it 4 times, and stay tuned till the end because I actually did it again the next day and I'll link you to that trip report as well. Even though I was dumb, I wasn't that dumb, so I started nice and low with 10 mg. It put me into a really nice trance where everything was alive and breathing. I looked at my pillow and I realized how little appreciation I have for it, so like a normal mentally stable person, I started hugging and kissing it whilst telling my walls, my window, my ceiling how much I loved and appreciated them. So an hour later, since DMT is just a drug, right? I doubled my dose to 20 mg, expecting an even nicer rush of euphoria again, only to be flung through this fractal tunnel of light. I mean, where do I start? I tried to close my eyes, which worked until they opened somewhere else, so I opened them and now there was literally no difference between having them opened or closed. It didn't even matter. I was flying through this blinding fractal tunnel that was covered in eyes. It actually looked really similar to Alex Gray's eye tunnel. Anyways, this scared the shit out of me because I felt like I was being watched and any thoughts I had could be seen by all these eyes, which meant I had no privacy. Imagine being naked in the middle of the street. You don't have clothes to hide behind anymore, so most people would feel really vulnerable. As a comparison, I felt way more vulnerable than being naked on the street. Not that I've tried it, because you know, I'd never break any laws, but I just couldn't get myself to trust whatever entities were watching me. It felt like I was being surrounded by this presence and I did not trust it at all. It didn't feel good, but it didn't feel bad either. It just felt really powerful, and because at the time I was the most skeptical of atheists, this was pretty much shattering all of my paradigms because it felt like something was communicating with me, and this communication felt more real than what I thought was reality. It made every conversation I've ever had feel like a dream conversation. I mean, the fact that a drug could give you this experience just didn't make sense. I actually spent a while just lying there trying to figure out if I even liked the experience. At the time, I was going through a kind of rebellious phase of trying a bunch of drugs after I realized I'd basically been lied to about everything drug related my whole life. But this experience made me very wary of taking drugs like it's no big deal. Now, a wise person would take some time off to integrate, but not me. From what I'd read online, the waiting room can be uncomfortable, but the breakthrough is where you want to be. Fair enough, let's try again at 30 mg. Since on the 20 mg dose I curled up into the fetal position, my intention now was to just trust whatever this god entity was and not fight it or resist. That first hit was already super uncomfortable. If anyone smoked DMT out of one of these, it was burning my tongue, my lips, my lungs, my throat. I didn't feel physically good at all, and I could feel myself being stripped naked again, but this time I was determined. So I kept taking hits, but I had to really force myself, and it just made everything worse. I can't lie, I hated it. Everything about it was unpleasant, and even though I was trying to let go, it just didn't feel nice at all. This wasn't as intense as my 20 mg dose because I didn't finish it, but it honestly didn't need to be. The super powerful God presence entered my room again, and now it was fed up at me for wasting its time. It did a bunch of things to try and scare me, which definitely worked. Props to whichever entity upstairs was responsible for that. But I basically just wrote it out and told myself I wouldn't smoke DMT again. So maybe it didn't work after all. Luckily for you guys watching, 17-year-olds are really stupid. I spent a couple hours reading online, and from what I gathered, when you break through, you can't really resist anymore. So clearly the solution to all of my problems was just to take more. By the way, I don't want to scare you. It's pretty obvious that I was being really irresponsible and I deserved everything that I got. Looking back on these experiences, they're some of the best things that have ever happened to me, and I'm really glad I had them. So keep that in mind. Somehow I had the courage to load up 50 mg, determined to break through this time. I took one hit, probably the intensity of 15 mg-ish, and instantly I knew I had just made a grave mistake. Despite literally having smoked it 3 times prior in the same day, I somehow convinced myself that I had just smoked poison and now I was gonna die. My mom was gonna find me dead in my room with the pipe next to me, and that was it. My life was now over. But instead of losing consciousness like I'd predicted with my materialist worldview, instead this evil god presence entered my room and brought along with it some nice shadow entities which at the time felt like demons. They all started jumping and flying inside of me. That was fun. Literally felt like I was being possessed and being raped. It was terrifying. I somehow picked up my phone and called my friend who knew I was about to trip, and I told them to just talk to me and ground me in something, which helped a lot. They told me to close my eyes and tell them what I could see, and I saw this really weird multi-dimensional alien jellyfish and various other images that showcased the amount of raw power that I was messing with here. For example, I saw this giant lion breathing fire at me. Eventually I came down. There was a process where, like a reflex, my mouth just opened wide and I saw and felt hundreds of shadows leaving my body, which was really relieving, but I was pretty fucking traumatized. There was a portion of that trip where I literally thought that I was gonna die, and not only that, but my soul, which by the way I literally didn't believe in, would have been given to this evil DMT god. This is basically what happens when you don't treat these substances with the respect they deserve. I mean, despite everything, I had a pretty good setting and the trip could have been infinitely worse. In a sense, it helped me because from that point, I wasn't so impulsive with taking psychedelics, and that could have actually prevented a way worse trip down the line. Ironically, I had my first acid trip at quite a high dose less than a week later, and it was amazing. If you want that trip report, then just leave a comment below and hit the like button. But yeah, despite all of this, I actually tried DMT again the next day with a very different vibe this time. This time I played music, I had my girlfriend at the time with me, and I was also slightly high, and I had a really good trip. If you want to see that trip report, then you can find it on my Patreon. I've also got a Discord now for all the psychonauts watching, and patrons will get a really cool role as well, so scroll down to the pinned comment and do your magic. Even though at the time these shadow entities seemed pretty evil, looking back it's hilarious because it feels like they were actually trying to help me and trying to get me to calm down, but I was just so terrified that I completely resisted any notion of anything that wasn't the sober reality that I'm used to. If any of those entities are watching, I am very sorry. But yeah, thanks for watching everyone. This channel is growing so fast, it's actually crazy to me. Hit the like button please, it will help more people see this video, and hit subscribe to join our family. See you next week.